Lost faith, monologue. Today's date is Saturday, the 9th of August, 2025. Been away for a couple of weeks, almost week and a half. Been on holiday to North Devon. It's called Croyd with my wife and teenage daughter. It's very nice. And then when I came back, I took part in a compulsory basic training for motorcycle riding, getting it into my head that I want to get a motorcycle license. I'm still in two minds, to be honest, but I thought I'll do the training anyway, get it done and then take it from there. In order to get a full license, you still got to take another 2 tests, I believe. So it'll still be a while yet. But anyway, with the basic training, you can get a little 125 if you want. See if you enjoy it. So, I'm at this basic training all day event, 8 till 4. And seriously, could have done it in 3 hours. Certainly half a day, easily. Stretch this thing out, probably get more money out of you. So, there was meant to be 4 people on it, but only myself and this other woman turned up. And the instructor, so there was 3 of us in the room. You do a classroom in the morning, practical in the afternoon, pretty much. Anyway, he's a ex-doorman, shaved head, long wizard beard, 40, obviously ex-doorman, big. Not necessarily that intimidating, probably more overweight than anything else, but I probably snap me into giving half a chance. But it's just weird. The reason I'm going to talk about this is just, again, when I go out into the world, I just lost faith. So constantly telling stories about himself, constantly just almost like using the attention that he's getting off these students to just be able to tell these bullshit experiences, which are just nothing. Always, every story has the kind of effect of putting other people down and trying to make himself look good, even though he self-confesses that he hasn't got 2 brain cells to rub together. It's just like, I would not entertain this person. Like, on the surface of it, there's nothing wrong with them, but I wouldn't entertain his stories if I wasn't forced to sit there and listen. And it made us start to think. It's obviously has tattoos as well, you know, bikers, beards, tattoos, doormen, you know. It's like the Hells Angels were infamously used as security at a Rolling Stones gig in 1969. You know how that ended. But yeah, it's like stereotype. And the young woman who was there, who, you stereotype people straight away. As soon as she walked in, I got the impression she was gay. And as it turned out, she was. So, there's nothing wrong with stereotyping. Just keep your opinions to yourself until you know the facts. But then it turned out that she, just a little petite young lady, and doesn't fit the stereotype biker. It turns out that she works in A&E in the hospital. So, and the two of them ended up having conversations about motorcycle accidents, and he seemed to be getting some sort of thrill out about like what accidents he's had, and like a saying where you share your war wounds. Soldiers, this is when I got shot in Vietnam, this is when I got beheaded in Iraq. And it's like an ego thing. Who's got the biggest and best wounds? So he's sharing those stories about him, and she's laughing and sharing some stories that she's seen. Motorcycle injuries. I'm sitting there thinking, this is hardly inspiring. But again, it's like he's got some sort of self-destruct button. That's the impression I get from these people. They're actually so in need of attention. They've probably had a loveless life, and then the self-torture, self-hurt by injecting ink into the skin to leave a permanent scar called a tattoo. That's trauma, in my opinion. Just like I wear t-shirts to reflect my trauma, like never trust the government, know your rights. I wear the symbols which represent my trauma, but I'm fully aware of it. And one thing's for sure, I can take that t-shirt off at the end of the day. It's not permanent. I can change, evolve and grow. I'm not going to have permanent reminders of my trauma, especially the potential damage and regret that a tattoo can have. Don't get me wrong, some of them are works of art, obviously, and if you want a tattoo, get a tattoo. Your body, your choice. But that's what I think they are. In the vast majority of cases, they are traumatised individuals who are self-harming as a way to get attention. It's just accepted. Pierce the skin in an acceptable manner. So one of his tattoos is on his inside of his wrist, of his right wrist, not his wrist, sorry, like his knuckles. But the gap between your thumb and your index finger, that joining sort of bit between those, and it's got an arrow pointing upwards, and it says full throttle. That's your throttle hand, and it's pointing of the direction of pulling the throttle on the motorbike all the way back. And that's how he lives his life. He lives his life in extremes. Security, dormant, full throttle, self-harming, trauma. This individual is traumatized and he's in desperate need of attention. And what was interesting, and then she works in A&E and laughing about people's injuries. I'm just sitting there thinking, is this what the motorcycle crowd is? Complete psychopaths with a death wish? Because that's what it seems like so far. And he said to her, he said to the girl, he said, I get a lot of like nurses in here. Why is that? And she said, and she answered him, and I think she's right. She said, oh, well, it's said that we live on the edge. As in, and I think that was it. I think that was verbatim. When you live on the edge, you always need more, because the edge becomes comfortable. And when you live, you're always seeking your next thrill. It's like the extreme version of that is obviously extreme sports like skydiving, jumping off buildings, and doing crazy stuff on jumping motorbikes over a dozen buses, flying through the air like a bat in those weird suits. That's where they live, on the edge. And is motorcycling in general, is it people who've got some sort of death wish and they've got so little regard for themselves, for their own safety and ultimately the safety of others. They've got so little regard for themselves that they're happy just to throw it all away for a thrill. But the thrill is just in the physical world. It's, you know, you can get thrills, you know, just discovering new bits of information, new bits of knowledge. They're the sort of thrills that I like. It probably lets off the same chemical. I'm going to guess probably sets off the same hormone and same chemical in your brain when you discover something new and say, wow, that blew my mind. It's probably the same experience when you go 150 mile an hour on a motorbike. Wow, that blew my mind. But I know what I'd rather do. Is that what this community is? You've got opposite ends of the spectrum, it would appear. A petite young woman versus a 18 stone bouncer. What have they got in common? They both lost the plot. They both have no empathy. That's what was coming across from the nurse, is that people, it also came across that they enjoy seeing people in pain. And when they're cleaning people up, they come in with wounds and broken bits and this, that and the other. Let's just say they have to scrub away. A motorcycle accident comes in, and let's just say the nylon of their clothes is actually melted into their skin, and they have to actually use like a scourer, a pan scrubber, and just be brutal with whatever with whatever cleaning fluid they use, whatever, but they actually scrub the nylon or the material out of the skin. It's excruciating. And she was saying like they enjoy, they get a thrill out of seeing people in pain. So they've got a job to do, and they know that if they do a good job, they've got to do a job to a certain standard. So you might have, whether it's just somebody cleaning up somebody's wounds, or whether it's a surgeon fixing something that's very technical, whatever. they've got to do to a certain standard. Some of them will want to excel and become reputable, but ultimately they enjoy doing it and they would do it anyway. They would do a bad job. If there was no rules, they would do a bad job if it meant inflicting more pain. That's what I'm taking from this, what I've heard. And I just felt like, get me out of here. But I had to endure it. But what was interesting was, so it was blatantly obvious to me that this young woman was gay. And almost instantly, he created, between him and her, he created this strange bully and victim kind of dynamic where he didn't do it to me at all. I saw him home in on her straight away, and obviously under the label of banter, which is what he said from the outset. I like banter, please give it back. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, just do the course and get us out of here. So this dynamic, I felt really uncomfortable because he created it straight away. It was almost like pressing a button when he's basically taking the piss out of her. As it turns out, he's 40, she's 37, but he was talking to her like she was some young woke kid just out of college. That's the way he was talking to her, like as if she was a lesser person. And he didn't do it to me, not once. And this, honestly, this is 8 hours. It went on all day. This abuser victim dynamic. And I felt like, I thought she was a bit uncomfortable with it to start with. And I remember thinking, you've got to be careful. You're paid to do this. You've got to be. You can't go around speaking to young women in this way. I mean, I'm not an EDI freak. I live in the real world. But nobody deserves to pay for a service and be treated in that way. Just because she's a woman doesn't mean it's any different. I'm just saying, in this day and age, you've got to be even more careful. Nobody, whether you're a woman, a man, or whatever in between these days, you don't deserve to be spoken to and treated in this weird, uncomfortable way in front of another person. And you can't fight back because you're in this environment where he's the teacher, you're the student. It was bizarre. I felt uncomfortable. I felt like she felt a bit uncomfortable as well. But then after a while, she even said, "Look, I'm 37. I'm only 3 years younger than you." Like, because he was referring to her as a young'un. In a way where you're just a stupid young person. And she said, "I'm 37. I'm only 3 years younger than you." But she seemed to, I almost picked up that she thought to herself, right, I'm here, I'm going to have to deal with it, so I'm just going to give some back. And then she started giving back. And then for the rest of the day, it was like this weird flirting. And I'm thinking, if I didn't know she was gay, because it came out fairly on, she referred to her partner as a her. So, at this point, I know she's gay, but it seemed like this weird flirting thing, where if I hadn't if I had thought she was straight, I would literally be saying to myself, well, he's get a room. And I wonder if somewhere in this traumatised brain, which is severely lacks empathy, I wonder if you just enjoy flirting, even if it is with the wrong sex, or you're the wrong sex for them, whatever. It's awkward. And then she kept coughing at one point, and he kept pretending to be scared of catching the 2020 psyop. I felt like saying, the 2020 psyop is finished, mate. You don't need to behave like that anymore. But he was clearly only doing it to connect with her. But I could tell it was making her like, God, I just want to cough without getting some sort of baby childish reaction from you. He was a child, basically. A child trapped in an adult's body. And you might ask, well, why are you getting into this hobby? Well, mine's for very, very specific reasons. Basically, when I go on holiday, I've got a little camper van. I want to stick a motorbike on a trailer so I can use the motorbike for getting around when we're camped up. So it's very much a practical thing that I'm doing. I'm not buying a crazy super bike, and I certainly won't be breaking the speed limits, and I certainly won't be going any faster than 60 mile an hour on roads where it's absolutely safe to do so. I value my life, and I value the life of my family to the point where I'm not going to traumatise them by doing something stupid. But I must admit, I was very put off with all the stories I heard, and both from them and from the actual lesson in itself. They've got to tell you the dangers, but it felt more like an exercise to put you off. So yeah, these are lost people, and it just started making us think. These are left-brained, egotistical thrill seekers because they're so bored. It's like American Psycho. He's just bored. What can I do next for a thrill? Oh, I'll just go and axe somebody. They're just bored people. They're like fidgeting. Always need something to do. So it made us think, like, these people, especially him, totally soulless. Doesn't even know he's got a soul. It's probably gone. No connection with anything. Seem to be doing this job so he can actually get attention. Tell his crap stories and bully people in a way that he can disguise as banter. Oh, that's what I was going to say. He never did it to me. And I don't know if he... So obviously it's not because he's intimidated by it. I'm about half the weight of him. So it's not that. Could it be just helps create this bully victim dynamic if you leave somebody else out of it? You're not going to bully both. It's kind of creating an ally, being nice to me. I think that's all it is. But I don't know why you pick on her. He's obviously chosen what he perceives as the weakest one. I wouldn't take it. I would probably walk out of there, to be honest. Maybe he can sense that. So it got us thinking, totally soulless. And when you've got no soul, you've got no connection to source, you've got no spirituality, no emotional intelligence, no empathy. What it does is it creates a nihilistic kind of mindset. He's got no idea that we're all connected, that there is only one consciousness, and that we are all tapped into that same source. We are creative beings. We can create anything we want, and we have a gift in that sense. And we are all ultimately one consciousness. And when you've got no connection, no spark, the light has gone out. You can see it. You can see it in people. And when that happens, when that spark is out, you know, you're completely left-brained, you're completely almost psychopathic, no empathy, thrill seeker, traumatized, bully mentality, enjoy seeing others in pain. When that happens to you, you are just a walking, talking ego. There is no balance, there is no checks and balances going on inside. You are just ego operating in the material world. And the ego is the selfish aspects of you. But it's not actually you. Your ego is not you. It's like a little chimp inside your brain. There's a book called, I think it's called The Chimp Paradox, and it explains this model very well. It doesn't necessarily call it the ego. I've just used the chimp to describe the ego because these men who are egotistical act like chimps, act like monkeys, like buffoons, like Neanderthals. So the chimp is selfish. It wants what it wants, and when there are no checks and balances, then the chimp is free to rule. And the chimp, it's meant to be there to protect you. Self-preservation. It's the part that wants you to eat and reproduce, you know, so you survive. We are complex. The reptilian brain. So anyway, but when it's out of control, it rules the roost, and it now is not looking after your best interests. It's looking after its best interests. You've become entirely possessed by the chimp, and that's where the self-destructive behaviour comes in. You're doing things that don't make any sense. You're living a life that doesn't make any sense. You're thinking thoughts that don't make any sense. you're destroying yourself and you're putting yourself in great danger. That's the chimp.